two seagulls without a care in the world. Here I am trying to take on a 400 billion religion. I think that's what the asset value is. But these birds haven't got a care in the world, and God satisfieth the desire of every living thing. They find enough sustenance, like I'm finding now, out of the kindness and care of loving people. And God looks after you if you do what's right. We don't need money, we don't need wealth. It becomes a hindrance, it becomes a weight. Scripture says, laying aside every weight which so easily entangles us. Let's run with endurance the race. And that's really what we're appealing to each other to do. I'm taking a certain type of risk in a very contentious situation, said Charlotte Harris, the Brethren's lawyers, which could either be used for good or otherwise. Well, so she was taking the ground of being the risk. I don't know really, she's been paid very well. I thought lawyers were protected, but she was making out she was the one risking all by coming for this mediation meeting. As though I was safe and my lawyers were safe, but she was the person who'd stepped into this awful arena to try and stop the hurt that was going on. It would make me nervous to record the meeting, especially in view of the fact there's a lot of suspicious people around, so please don't record it. And then she said, under next heading, cooperation and communication, I'm not trying to catch you out, Lance. I'm more neutral than I appear to be. I'm not playing any strange power games. Wow, it sounds as though she was just there on my side. What a wonderful woman. So I said, I say what I think. I'm open and trusting and free. I like teamwork and working together. I'm sad that Jed isn't here. I had over 27 PC visits. I was pleading for a meeting with my adversaries, i.e. those that were bringing up charges against me. That was never allowed. So Mike Hughes, Phil Hutchinson, Keith Birch, Stuart Birch, all these people that have brought up cases against me, Sheffield and Nottingham, Worcester, Rob Francis, Lawrence Francis, all these guys who seem to be against me have written letters in, please get them round, let's sort this, lads. No, not allowed. I had 27 priestly visits, all one-way traffic, very tilted conversations. I've had to cope with the lack of two-way communication for years and years. Charlotte says, we have a safe space here, Lance. I will be communicating my personal and very innermost feelings. Wow, spirit and song stuff, it sounded beautiful. I said, well, when people approach me for help, I respond immediately. The Good Samaritan in Luke 10 was spontaneous. It shouldn't need to go through a hierarchy. My lawyer then said, in terms of reconciliation, Lance, would you be prepared to accept that the Brethren and Jed might hold a different view? Of course, absolutely, Stephen. So Stephen said to Charlotte, Jed doesn't need to agree with Lance in order to meet him. Set up a meeting, please. I said, yes, we can resolve all these matters by kindness, forgiveness, and peace. The judges have always been good where we've met them in court. I've got confidence in the British justice system. The Brethren should be able to maturely talk to me, but no, boom, and you're out of fellowship. You can't speak to anybody. I was 100% devout, and yet suddenly I found out that I'm mental, deranged, and heretic. So I just outlined that to Charlotte Harris. I'm just suddenly helping, setting up one Medicare Fund director, setting up UBT, helping people best I could, soul, money, lending money. Suddenly, whoop, separation is applied and you're out. So, Charlotte Harris says, well, the ex-employee wouldn't be able to cope with meeting you once. So don't bring her into this. In other words, you're so hard and demanding, just the opposite to what I was saying, that she couldn't meet you. And obviously, Jed, my son, has a big difficulty meeting me too. Else he'd have been there, wouldn't he? I understand that people are all scared of you, but you don't think you're scary. So I've got the problem because I think I'm fairly mild, kind, forgiving, a Christian, like Christians should be, but Charlotte Harris saying, no, people think you're scary. They're frightened of you. So things were starting to hot up at this stage of the interview. I said, well, let's get these guys around the table. I went to see the ex-employee because the brethren had put me in a hard place. I held my hands up and admitted it wasn't a wise thing to go to see her in retrospect, so why can't the brethren understand that and forgive if I've done something wrong? Not that I had. So Charlotte Harris says, this ex-employer did find out what had been written about her in this stolen dossier, which was private as far as I'm concerned, and she was upset about it. Yes, I went to some trusted friends of mine for advice and showed them the dossier, but they didn't even look at the section about this ex-employee. So, of course, I was in trouble because I'd shared all my story like I am now. I don't hide this because transparency demands that we spread our whole situation on the table, make ourselves vulnerable and expect the best from those that understand your story because they love you and protect you. So Charlotte Harris said, I understand that the brethren are in a bubble and that it's very difficult for them to hear what you say. So back to a bit of sympathy. They're in a bubble, so it's very difficult. So here I am trying to get them to judge righteously by looking at my side of the story, but she's accepting that they're in a bubble. A wall of separation around them, big, thick wall, so that there's no communication with those that they mistreat. So I tried to meet that by saying, well, there's a sense of humour will go a long way, a bit of fun to break down the opposition rather than a set of rules. I said there would be great repercussions in the religion if I reconciled with Jed. This is a long time ago, before I spent all these extra times in court. And my lawyer said the litigation could disappear, but can the relationship be salvaged? So we were pleading for reconciliation. And I said I'd be prepared to protect the ex-employee, Jed, and my ex-wife, all these exes. And my lawyer said, Josh is saying that Lance can't write him a letter. So then Charlotte Harris goes into a different set of clothes, you might say, and suddenly starts talking about people can be harassed by sending them bunches of flowers. I'm not quite sure what relevance that had. I remember when my father sent me a birthday card and a gift, and my mother, just after they were withdrawn from, Oliver Small said I had to send it back. So that was an insult back. Maybe that's what she's referring, that's Oliver Small thought that was harassing of my parents to send their son, their eldest son, a birthday card and a gift. So I had to send it back. Maybe that's what she's meaning. And then Charlotte Harris, I didn't know the police had visited you. Shock, horror. What did you write to the brethren about to cause them to send the police round? Well, that of course all came up in court just over a year later, and I was completely acquitted. It all went through with a tooth comb by the brethren's lawyer, well, the Crown lawyer, who was stating the brethren case that I was a harasser, therefore a criminal, therefore should go to jail, basically. My lawyer, my barrister, who was saying no, there's no harassment here, and asked the brethren to say where the harassment was. And they had to admit there wasn't any, so they were bringing these documents as evidence that there's no harassment. Anyway, Charlotte Harris, it's good that you're here, Lance. I'll present things in the same way as we've spoken today. I know you'd have felt safer recording the meeting. I'd like to have peace for you and Jed going forward. I haven't found you in any way a monster. So, although all those other people are scared of me, Charlotte was saying, Lance, you're no monster. Thank you, Charlotte. If you need it. And I said to her, and trust begets trust. I haven't found you a monster either. You're a human being with passion. As my lawyer said, we can't solve this matter in isolation. So I said, please appeal to Bruce Hales, Charlotte, to be a brother amongst his local brethren. That's all I want him to be. So get down, climb down from his dictator status, ruling with a totalitarian empire, and just be mutual and enjoy life amongst the brethren with a clear conscience. That comes through putting things right if you've done anything wrong. I pointed out there have been 9 cases against me. This was the 10th. And I'm not here to win or lose. And then Charlotte says, well, I'm not. It's not that I don't care about suffering generally. Mediation is the easiest route to see Jed. So let's see where the meeting goes and see if we can set up a meeting. But unless we do that, all I can see going forward is more fighting. I then said, she then said, so can you restrict, she was saying, can you restrict what you say to Jed and just be social and nice, but not really get down to anything deep? So I said, well, if you're saying that I can't talk about suffering in the connection of this meeting, I'm deeper than that. I will speak to Jed's heart. That's what a father does. There's no fight needed. We just need to be humble enough to review what's gone wrong. There should be respect. There are good people in the brethren. So my lawyer said, Lance would never falsify a report and say that Jed agrees with him if he doesn't. Lance just doesn't do that. So he was sticking up for my character. I don't falsify anything, I just speak the truth even if it hurts. And then Charlotte said, but this perception that Lance doesn't falsify reports isn't held elsewhere, meaning amongst the brethren. They say that Lance does falsify things and he doesn't speak the truth. But Lance, she said, you're a man of reflection. Your natural process will reflect on what's being said today and come up with some ideas. Well, this is my idea, just to publicise what's happened in Sydney, and hopefully the man of God who controls everything, absolutely, and maybe his sons as well, but they're together like a team. I'm back in Sydney, bringing things back to the place in which the punishment's been meted out from, and that's why I'm here and why I keep coming back. I made it clear I've never been the initiator of any breakup of relationships among any brethren. I always brought in healing when brethren came to me with or tried to bring in healing. I said, but Charlotte, understand, Bruce Hales is the elephant in the room here. He was the elephant in the room at every court case. He's the elephant in the room the whole time. So it's a massive element, but he's trying to hide. Well, you can't hide elephants easily, can you? They're too big. Man of God, the minister of the Lord of Recovery. Wow, what a title. Oh, trying to avoid accountability? I don't think so. So I then said, this is a bit cheeky. I said, let's carve the elephant up into bite-sized pieces and deal with it. Charlotte didn't reproach me for that. Anyway, now we move on to the next section, which is a bit more down to the bone, you might say, called nastiness. I said the boss parks the orders in church, whether they're right or wrong. For example, Bruce Hales said that Lance must keep being rebuked in full assembly. There have been lots of power games played against me by Bruce Hales, and your firm, Kingsley Plea, has been involved in that, Charlotte. Charlotte said, I understand the humiliation of the rebuke that you were subjected to, Lance. Thank you, Charlotte. I said, I was accused of vaguey-agey things like sowing discord. They said I was going around disrupting relationships. I was doing exactly the opposite. I went to Boston to bring matters to his attention and the hierarchy, to tell him the hierarchy was the problem in both Nottingham and Sheffield. Because Bruce Hales was in control of the brethren priests, as he always is. I said that the control is so great that if a victim reaches out to me for help, they're in trouble, and I'm in trouble too if I help. That is the level of control. It's a very, very controlling system, Charlotte. On one visit I was told that Bruce Hales had told Fiona, Garth's wife, to keep on rebuking Lance in assembly until he crumbles, until he gives up, until he submits. That meant that I had no real future in the PBCC church, because I wasn't prepared to submit to persons. To the truth, yes, but there was no truth in the charges. The way they operate, Charlotte, is designed to crush your brain and insides. They damn you to hell. My lawyer just then pointed out the case has been started by Jed. I don't think so, I think it's by the brethren. Anyway, and as a consequence, the ex-employer was brought back into it. She would never have known about anything if she hadn't been brought back into it. Why was she brought back in? Very good question. I said, it's a damaging conspiracy. My lawyer said it's not Lance's fault that the ex-employer was brought into this. I said, I suddenly found out that I was damned as being mental and deranged and a heretic in the brethren. It's psychological torture. Most can't get through it, but I survived. Do you understand the seriousness of this, Charlotte? The brethren conspire behind your back. They never asked me whether they could take my business. There was no effort to ask me, not a scrap. The same thing happened to my father. The leader of the day, Simonton, said he was the most ambitious man in Christendom. He also said he's going to the lake of fire, or at least Oliver Smallman said that. That was conveyed by Oliver Smallman. Little me at the age of 16 stayed with the brethren while all this nastiness was going on. I'm now standing, listen to this, in the middle of time. I'm not prepared to let this happen to my grandchildren like it's happened to my grandfather, father and mother and son, Jarl, already. I'm not prepared to let this continue. That's why I'm in Sydney now, in May 2024. I'm here to stop it happening. I'm not scared of the ex-employer. I wanted her to be general manager. I had faith in her. So why has she done this to me? Charlotte Harris then said the judge didn't like us joining the two cases. They thought we should have separated the cases earlier. So she admitted that the judge didn't like the joining of the cases. So I just made it clear. There are many heartbreakingly shocking suicides among the brethren that they try to cover up. It was better that I went to the ex-employee, one of my closest friends outside the brethren, than commit suicide with all the psychological pressure that was on me. I was in the fairly desperate strait, having lost my home, family and business. Charlotte said, I know nothing about Bruce Hales and his sons, saying that you were a murderer and an arsonist. Well, that's what they said, that I was outside Bruce Hales' house to put a cap in his head. They brought that to the courts. Charles Hales did, the third son. I wanted to put a bullet through Bruce Hales. They were in touch with Wearmouth from, Laurie Wearmouth from Warkworth. When the Wearmouths and the Haleses combine, whoa, what a combination. It's worse than the legal system, almost, combining with the Haleses. But that's awfully wrong. And also, I was apparently, Charles reckoned I was pacing the place out to set fire to Bruce Hales' house. So he died. So I'm a narcissist. So I tried to help Charlotte understand this. And then she said, I know nothing about Bruce Hales and his sons, saying that you're a murderer and an arsonist. I said, well, in their hearts, the brethren know the scripture, let the little esteem judge. But the leader is making all the judgments and you have to comply. That's wrong. Bruce Hales jokes about being mental, yet he's deadly serious. He told me in the London interview in June 15 that he turned to his wife and said he was going mad. She said, join the club. He can laugh about that and make fun while he's destroying me and taking away my business and getting lots and lots of money from his compliant congregation. And then I said to Charlotte, you served letters on everyone that you knew Laurie Moffat had sent the address books of mine to see a copy. 4 unsuspecting ex-brethren were devastated. It was torture for them. They were weeping on my shoulder. I explained that on my side of the story that Laurie Moffat wants to bring reconciliation about by sharing the names and addresses of parents and children and relatives to those who have been excommunicated, because they still love people inside like I do. So he thought it would be a means of reaching out to communicate, reaching through the wall. I pointed out Laurie was jailed for contempt of court in Pentonville, but he was at his girlfriend's house when the heavy gang turned up. He thought they were brethren, and anyway didn't want people pouring through his girlfriend's house. That side of the story needs explaining. It's not that easy when you're served a court order to be searched and have your computers and house searched. The brethren and you was saying that he was so nasty that he was going to cause harm by turning up at brethren's houses because he knew their addresses. That's an overstatement, Charlotte. You chose a very ruthless way to deal with a matter of copyright and caused massive distress. Hearts were broken and souls fearful of the strong arm of the law in the form of Kingsley Lately. This is just after I was out, just at the time I was being withdrawn from by the brethren. Laurie turned up at a meeting with my brother Garth and his son Neil and nice lawyers. I think there were 9 lawyers, Laurie told me, to resolve the issue of his website. But when Laurie told the lawyers that Garth was responsible for him not seeing his own son for a great number of years, the whole meeting broke up. Then Charlotte Harris had her say. I understand that a legal letter is very upsetting for non-lawyers, so she can do it without blinking. Hurt us, but she understands that it might hurt us. Well, why do it then, Charlotte? You were the messenger of this awful, terrible overreaction to a small breach of a copyright law. It's a bit like Craig Stewart from Sydney has tried to get into massive trouble for recording conversations with him. But they're so distressing for me that I just need it to keep saying. When it's really going for me and really, really hammering at me, I just feel the need for my own sanity to have a recording. And it might not be strictly legal, but when you feel you're dealing with criminality and people making false charges, some of us are only human, so we do need the extra reassurance of a recording. And I would just humbly say that. And if people want to start another legal case against me for recording privately, well, bring it on. I mean, I will explain why I had to do it. I thought things were pretty serious. And I needed something to show the police. I needed something to show the government. I needed something to show the tax authorities. I needed something to show my legal team. And then Charlotte says, you've got some good legal nous, Lance. Well, thank you, Charlotte. The brethren say I'm mental. But and I've had to learn all my law stuff since I left, 2017. 61 till I'm 68 now. I wasn't allowed it when I was young. No. And she said, it would have been upsetting for me. I can understand now, she said, if I'd got a look out in your shoes and got a legal letter like I sent out to the brethren. But it was unhelpful what Laurie did. But why punish him by putting him into jail? She said judges are generally okay, but they look at things through a much more secular prism than you, Lance. The fact was that Laurie's website looked bad to the secular eye, despite it looking okay to ex-brethren. But the ex-brethren need a voice. They need a window to actually try and put forward their side of the story. Who's advocating for them? No one. I am now. But nobody was back then. Well, there were some, but weren't getting too far. People like Jill Mitton's probably the most famous. But she hasn't actually turned the tide on her own. I've tried to work with her, with not too much success. The trouble with judges and their secular eye is sometimes they see things differently than they look on the religious platform. Exactly, Charlotte. So we've got two things here. We've got the spiritual, religious platform, and then we've got the legal platform, which are very different platforms. So even Charlotte can see the difference and why business and money and religion should not be intertwined. I didn't know about the efforts to resolve matters with Laurie outside Parliament with Garth, Neil and 9 lawyers. Garth knew, Neil knew, Bruce Hales knew, big time. It was at the time the brethren were trying to win their charitable status and they didn't want Laurie causing any trouble because they felt that they are such a brilliant religion and tried to convey this to Parliament and the past committee meeting, the Charity Commission, that you can all come into our meetings, we're such lovely people, that Parliament crumbled and gave them charitable status when they tried to take it away. And then she said, I'm not sure that I said you were mad, but I think this is all madness, Lance. People can take things both ways. And then I made it clear, it's the brethren that said I was mad, not you. They said that anyone who disagrees with Bruce Hales must be mad. But I really liked my ex-employer, so why does she hate me now? I've left that question on the table. I'd love to speak to her, because I think you'll find the reason was not her own personal hatred of me. I think it was the brethren who have put her up to this. But I might be wrong. I hold myself accountable for all my enemies, brethren. I just made it clear, I'm here and prepared to reconcile with the ex-employer from my side. And Charlotte Harris says, of course you're not the devil, Lance, even if Bruce Hales said so. Thank you. So this is the lawyer acting for the brethren. Even if Bruce Hales says you're the devil, I'm not saying it. Well, thank you. I made it clear that Bruce Hales makes defamatory remarks, that if I say anything against him, I'm in trouble. She could see that. And I said that Jed's a victim of narcissism, and I've worked out the narcissistic system that Jed's in. She said, I understand narcissism, Lance. You understand it. You've written books about it. I said, well, Jed is not a narcissist, but the victim of narcissism. So if you consider that, Charlotte, and think it over, it would be nice if this case didn't have anything to do with Jed. I want to protect him. So that was my plea. I want to protect Jed, keep him out of this. But no, Jed came into the court case last November, after all this had happened, 2 years later, stood in the dock in front of me, also in January, both times, and Josh, my two sons, when the father is saying, I want to protect him, keep him out of this, please. This was 2 years previous. Charlotte Harris says, Lance, you could give Jed a little objective lesson on narcissism. She said, it's very difficult to explain narcissism to Jed, especially if you want me to tell him that Bruce Hales is a narcissist. And I said, just let Jed, tell Jed, explain to Jed what narcissism is all about so he understands the principle. Who he applies it to is his matter. And my lawyer said, well, Jed does not want to hear about narcissism right now because of his devotion to Bruce Hales. And then I said, well, Jed's devotion to Bruce Hales can change. The brethren say that you must be mental if you disagree with him. They crush your mind. I explained that I'd written to a director of One Medifund, actually Ian Price, although I didn't mention his name. So good will come out of that, because I trust Ian Price that he will take up the case and put matters right, because he's a nice guy. He's in an unfortunate situation, but he needs to step up to this. I didn't tell her this, but I've also spoken to John Ross and Duncan Hulbert. I've laid the whole thing out to Duncan Hulbert of Knaresborough, Harrogate. And I just point out, Bruce Hales and the brethren destroy your self-esteem. I get the sin of it, I'm just a sinner saved by grace, but there's no need to destroy my self-esteem. Charlotte Harris says, I'm very thankful for this meeting. I can see now your mission is to expose Bruce Hales because you have to conform to his judgments. Yeah, so that's right. The separation was used as a tool to get control of my business. Charlotte, you can tell Jed that Bruce Hales is trying to run me out of money. Please tell Jed that. The priestly system of the brethren is 3 against 1, so you haven't got a witness. Interestingly, we've now got a situation where the 3 of us here together on one side, and you are on your own, Charlotte. So this is actually a reverse. It's the 3 of us and 1 of you. So I thought a lot of good would come out of this, because she didn't have witness, and I have. Everything I'm saying now, I've got witness to. And then she said a remarkable statement, don't worry about me. I don't care about right or wrong. Now that is my issue with the legal system. As long as they're getting paid, they don't care about right or wrong. Charlotte Harris, you're a Jew. And and you don't care about right or wrong? Oh, I'm just doing my job. This is what the lawyers say. We're just doing our job. If a criminal asks us to do a job, we do our very best for the criminal. I have a problem with the legal systems of our countries. I believe honesty should be part and parcel of any legal approach, and then criminals will be exposed rather than being let off because they've got strong lawyers. I lay that on the table for the world to think about. We're trying to stamp out evil in the world and make it a better place. I said, surely it's right that you should help to bring about reconciliation. Oh yes, she said, it's right for me to help bring about reconciliation, so long as it's within the confines of the law. So she would not step out into the moral world from the legal world. So we've got a religion, the Plymouth Brethren Sisters, forcing me into a legal situation, and the lawyers just keep pounding me legally, like the priests kept pounding me. And as soon as I step out back into the spiritual world, as I thought the brethren were, they have a problem with that. So she said, reconciliation is good, lads, if it avoids being at each other's throats. Of course it is. That's exactly what reconciliation is about, so we can live peaceably with each other.